Hey guys, Steinixos here. So today we'll be talking about Monkey D. Luffy. Specifically, we'll be trying to figure out just how strong he is. Now, everyone already knows that Luffy is basically the best character in all of fiction. I mean, he boasts a drip that's basically unmatchable by any opponent. He's the smartest and the most philosophical-minded shonen main character, asking existential questions that would make the likes of Nietzsche, Freud and Kant bow to him in reverence. He's a musical genius, and even his Red Rock, a mere introductory attack in Wano, is basically acknowledged by all of the internet to be more iconic than even Goku's Kamehameha. So with a character like Luffy that is basically perfect in all aspects, the obvious question that many people have is, well, just how strong is this godlike entity known as Monkey D. Luffy? So let us jump right into trying to answer just that. Now, from very early on in the series, it was made painfully obvious to us just how powerful Luffy is through his battle with Enel, a character described by the Skypians to be a god. Now, just being a god is actually not all that impressive, given that in Skypea, god is merely a title that is given to the ruler of Skypea. However, the thing that makes Enel special is that in contrast to all the previous gods of Skypea who merely just held a title, Enel on the other hand actually holds the attributes of a god, as he is acknowledged as being omnipotent. And we clearly see this omnipotent description of Enel throughout the Skypea art by many residents of Skypea and even by Enel himself, so it is wholly supported by the context. And this omnipotent status of Enel is even independently borne out through his attacks. We see this clearly with his attack Mamaragan, for example, which, through the utilization of pixel scaling plugged into various equations, we can see where the power of this attack is calculated to be a number so large that it would take quite some time to say, but which we know represents a multiversal or at least a universal attack potency. Yet Luffy was able to completely destroy this omnipotent Enel, thus we know without a shadow of a doubt that Luffy is also omnipotent. Now, we could basically just end the video here, since you can't really get much higher than omnipotence. However, some of you may not be convinced, so let us further reinforce the point of Luffy being at least multiversal by speaking about Caribou, the Logia user of the Mud or Swamp Devil Fruit, which can store things in his body even if the thing is massively bigger than himself. As a matter of fact, the reason we are bringing Caribou up is because the space within his body is literally described to be boundless. Now, we know that there are characters from series such as Cultivator against Hero Society who have a universe within themselves, but you'll note even a universe typically has a limit. Compare this to Caribou on the other hand, who is far above even these characters, being that the space within him is described as boundless. That is, there is no limit. So here we have a boundless character, and this boundless character is easily defeated in a single punch by a Fishman Island base form Luffy. So again, here we have undeniable proof that even Multiversal is a downplay when describing a boundless character such as Luffy. But let us say you are still somehow unconvinced. Well, it just so happens that at Whole Cake Island, we were introduced to Montdor, the user of the book fruit, which allows him to produce various books. And it just so happens that in the data books, it is clearly stated that through these books, Montdor is literally able to create isekais, which is a Japanese word for parallel or different universe. And this is further reinforced in the manga, where Jinbe explains that the span, which we obviously know to mean the full extent of a thing, so the full extent of any world he creates through his books is infinite. And then Big Mom even goes on to highlight that these books that he creates have an infinite amount of worlds. So Montdor is able to create an infinite amount of worlds that are each infinitely large in size. This easily places Montdor to at least multiversal level. And remember, we know that Montdor isn't even a Sweet Commander in ranking of Big Mom's crew, and Katakuri is acknowledged to be the strongest of the Sweet Commanders, and Montdor and all the others of Big Mom's senior children acknowledge this fact that of all of Big Mom's children, Katakuri is the closest in power to Big Mom. So this obviously places Katakuri above Montdor, and we know that Luffy was eventually acknowledged by Katakuri to be on his level, and after a long fight, Luffy was eventually able to beat Katakuri. Thus again, there's no denying that Luffy's at least multiversal. And I mean, I could just go on forever here. Like for example, in Wano, we saw where when Luffy and Kaido clashed, they exuded enough power to split the heavens. Now note carefully, when the term heavens is being used here, it is not referring merely to the clouds in the sky. We know this for a fact because when Whitebeard and Shanks clashed, which accomplished the same feat, Marco specifically told us that it was not merely just the clouds in the sky that were split, but rather it was the actual heavens itself that was being split. So splitting the heavens, which is a celestial construct, easily puts Luffy in the multiversal range. And also again, in Wano, we know that Zoro received and tamed Enma, a sword which is literally stated to be able to split the earth down to the bottom of hell. And we all know that hell is an infinite or at least universal construct. Thus we know that Zoro is at least universal, and we know that Luffy is stronger than Zoro, given that Zoro himself has said that he would not follow anyone weaker than himself. And I mean, there are also other characters like Blackbeard, whose darkness is stated to have infinite gravity, and is referenced to be similar to that of a black hole, given that even light isn't able to escape it. So the power of Blackbeard black hole attacks is calculated to be multiversal in attack potency, yet even a pre-time skip Luffy was able to withstand the force. Furthermore, you have multiple characters like Vista who confirm that Luffy is indeed boundless, and remember, this is all without getting into Gear 5 Luffy, who is a Toon Force user that can fight in quote whatever way he wants, and who can literally bring anything he imagines into reality. Like, hopefully you get the point by now. A multiversal Luffy is well supported, and even calling him multiversal may be just an understatement of his true power. But outside of just power, another interesting thing about Luffy is that he is confirmed to be a being who transcends death. You see, from early in the series, Zoro, the mere second in command of Luffy, was established to be a person who, in his own words, not even death can take his life away, and him being unable to die was proved through multiple instances. As a matter of fact, Zoro even fought death itself and was seemingly able to beat death itself with seemingly no long-term injuries. So again, given that we know that Luffy is not weaker than Zoro, Luffy also has to transcend death. And as a matter of fact, this is even clearly illustrated for Luffy, being that throughout the series we have seen where Luffy has been described as a man who is able to cheat death, and also as a person who is able to make miracles happen. And in his fight against Kaido, we see this firsthand, because even after Luffy literally dies, which Kaido himself confirmed, Luffy was able to just bring himself back to life through the use of his Devil Fruit. So it's pretty clear that Luffy is a transcendental being. And frankly, this at the very least is obviously expected when there are characters like Kiku, whose sword attacks leaves wounds that don't disappear even after death, but rather follows the opponent to the afterlife and torment their soul for all eternity. Thus so far we've understood that Luffy is an omnipotent boundless being who transcends death itself. However, with all this, some of you may be wondering, well, just how fast is Luffy? So even as just a quick lowball here, the author of One Piece himself told us that to dodge an attack from Enel, you have to be at least light speed. Thus, through the author's own words, we know that a Skypiea arc Luffy was at least light speed. And I mean, this is completely supported by even the story, given that exactly after Skypiea, we know that Luffy fought Foxy, the user of the Nora Nora Devil Fruit that allows him to fire Nora Nora beams. And these Nora Nora beams are stated to be photons, which, if you did not know, photons is what light is made up of, and by their very nature, always move at light speed. Yet we saw where Luffy was easily able to dodge multiple of these Nora Nora beams. Thus we can comfortably say that a pre-time skip Skypiea arc Luffy was at least light speed. Then we know that Luffy's first serious opponent in the post-time skip was Hody Jones, who obviously would not be slower than a pre-time skip Skypiea arc Luffy. Thus we know that a base Horde is at least light speed, and by the end of the Fishman arc, Horde took at least 30 energy steroids, a drug which we know doubles the user's physical stat with each one taken. So Horde after his binge was at least 1 billion times faster than light. Yet Luffy was easily able to keep up with this massively faster than light plus Horde, and through further battles, we know that Luffy was then eventually pitted against characters who could blitz him even while he was looking into the future. And Luffy even got faster than these characters, so it's pretty safe to say that Luffy's speed at this point is at least immeasurable. And again remember, this is without even getting into Gear 5. But that's basically the video guys, and if you've made it this far, congrats. Now by this point you should have realized that this, like my Boundless Immortal King Zoro video, is obviously just a satire video, poking fun at some of the common power scaling tropes I often come across, as well as showing what it would actually look like if I were to wank Luffy and One Piece, as some people often claim I do. So you can let me know what you thought about it in the comment section down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you like the video. But anyway, see you guys next time.